Good day, everyone. So, for today's discussion, we will talk about alternating current. And here's our roadmap for the day. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to use phasors to describe sinusoidally varying quantities. Second is to apply reactance to describe voltage across circuit elements in AC circuits. Third is to analyze an LRC series circuit with sinusoidal EMFs at different frequencies. Fourth is to determine the power flow in AC circuits, and lastly is to explain why transformers are useful and how they work. So notice the progression. We will start with mathematical tools such as the phasors, then proceed to circuit elements, then power, and finally the applications like transformers. So kindly turn to your peer and brainstorm. Which of these goals do you think connects most directly to everyday technology? Is it on radios, household power, or transformers? So what do you think? So waves from a broadcasting station produce an alternating current in the circuits of a radio, like the one in the classic car. And how does a radio tune to a particular station? So think of a radio in a classic car. So waves from a broadcasting station produce alternating current in the radio circuits. How does the ratio tune to one station out of many? And that's the magic of resonance in AC circuits. And how are AC circuits different from DC circuits? So unlike DC circuits, AC circuits have voltages and currents that vary sinusoidally with time. Resistors, capacitors, and inductors behave differently under AC than DC. So kindly discuss what's one everyday device you use that relies on alternating current. So, what do you think? So, most present-day household and industrial power distribution system operate with alternating current or the AC current. And an AC source supplies a sinusoidally varying voltage and typically described by this diagram. So any appliance that you plug into a wall outlet uses alternating current. So what is an alternating current? So an AC source is a device that supplies a sinusoidally varying voltage. So why do we use AC for power distribution instead of DC? A sinusoidal voltage might be described by a function such as V is equal to V cos then WT. So here, the V is the instantaneous potential difference, and the uppercase V is the voltage amplitude, and W is equal to 2 pi f, which refers to the angular frequency. So in the United States and Canada, commercial electric power distribution systems use a frequency RF which is equivalent to 60 Hertz. And Hertz is the unit used for frequency. And the corresponding sinusoidal alternating current is described by this following formula, in which I is the instantaneous current is equal to the uppercase I, which refers to the current amplitude, cos W, which is the angular frequency, and lastly, multiplied by T, which is the time. And remember that the current amplitude here is a maximum current. So we have here a simple problem example. So if V is equal to 170 volts amplitude, what is the RMS voltage? So we are going to find the RMS voltage. And how can we solve for it? So we have here the formula V RMS is equal to V over square root of 2 So V over square root of 2. So what is V? We have 170 voltage over the square root of 2. So it is equal to 1.414. So 170 over 1.1414. So this is equal to 120 volts. So we get 120 volts for RMS voltage. So why do we quote RMS values instead of peak values for household voltage? So what do you think? So to represent sinusoidally varying voltages and currents, sinusoidally varying voltages and currents, we define rotating vectors called the phasors. So shown in the diagram is a phasor for sinusoidal current, in which we have here the I, which refers to the length of phasor equals the maximum current length. Then phasor rotates with the frequency as well as the angular speed, which is equal to 2 pi f. And we have here, based on the graph, the projection of phasor onto horizontal axis at time t equals to the current at that instant. I is equal to I cos the product of the angular frequency as well as the time. So phasors, again, are rotating vectors that represent sinusoidal quantities. So imagine a vector rotating at angular frequency. Its projection on the vertical axis gives the instantaneous value of voltage or current. So phasors simplify analysis by turning differential equations into algebra. So you can draw a phasor on your notebook and kindly rotate it. So based on your observation, what does its vertical projection looks like? So to calculate the RMS value of a sinusoidal current, so first we need to have a graph of the current versus the time. Second is to get the square of the instantaneous current. Then third is to take the average or the mean of the value of all the instantaneous current, which is I squared. Then lastly is to take the square root of that average. So this gives effective value of current or voltage. So we have here a simple problem example. So if the current amplitude is equal to 10 ampere, what is the RMS current? So in order to get the RMS current, so we need to follow this formula. V is equal to R. So we need to divide current amplitude, which is equal to 10 ampere over the square root of 2. So we have 10 square root of 2 is equal to 1.4414. So we will get 7.07 here. So therefore, the RMS current is equal to 7.07 ampere. So let's think, pair, and share. So why is RMS current more useful than a peak current in power calculations? So we will now move on to the root, mean, and square values for sinusoidal AC sources. So in here, the RMS current and voltage values are is equal to I RMS, which refers to the root mean square value of a sinusoidal current, equal to the current divided by the square root of 2, which is in which I refers to the current amplitude. So we have here another formula for this, which is a VRMS, which is the value for a sinusoidal voltage is equal to the V, which is the voltage amplitude divided by the square root of 2. So in here, the voltage amplitude is at maximum value. So shown in the picture is a wall socket which has a voltage amplitude equal to 170 volts, meaning that the voltage alternates between positive 170 volts and negative 170 volts. So therefore the RMS voltage is VRMS is equal to 120 volts. So wall sockets in North America, just like this, have is referred to as quoted household voltage. So why do we say 120 volts household voltage when the actual peak is 170 volts? So we have here a resistor in an AC or alternating current circuit. So when a resistor is connected with an AC source, the voltage and current amplitudes are related by Ohm's law. So what can you recall? So Ohm's law is equal to V is equal to IR, in which the V here represents the voltage across a resistor for an alternating current circuit is equal to the product of the current amplitude, which is the uppercase I, and the resistance represented by an uppercase R. So the resistance does not depend on the frequency of the alternating current source. So resistance is independent of frequency, in other words. So we have here an example. So a 10 ohms resistor connected to 120 volts RMS. So find the RMS current. So we need to find the RMS current. So we need to define the voltage over the value of the resistor, which is 10 ohms. So 120 volts over 10 ohms. So we will get 12 ampere, in which ampere is the unit for current, and then RMS, sub RMS. So therefore, the RMS current is equal to 12 ampere. So does a resistor care whether voltage is DC or AC? So what do you think? So we have here a graph of a current and voltage versus time. So graphically, voltage and current waveforms overlap perfectly for a resistor. Peaks and zero crossings occur at the same times. So the sketch voltage and current versus time for a resistor. So what do you notice? So we have here the amplitudes are in the same relationship as for a DC circuit, in which the voltage for a resistor is equal to the product of the current amplitude and the resistor. And the current is in phase with voltage, in which the crest and troughs occur together. So we have here a phasor diagram. So the current and voltage phasors are in phase, in which they rotate together. So power in a resistor is always positive. Energy is dissipated as heat continuously. So we have here the instantaneous voltage and also the instantaneous current. So to better describe this, so let's try to solve this problem. So if resistor carries 12 ampere RMS at 120 volts RMS, so we need to find the power. So in order to find the power, let's follow this formula. P is equal to the product of V, the volts, and the current amplitude. So let's substitute the given values. We have 120, 120 volts multiplied by the current amplitude, which is 12 ampere. So wait, so we have 12 ampere. So multiplying these two values, we will get 1,414. And what is the unit for power? We have watts. So therefore, the power is equal to 1,440 watts. So why is average power non-zero for resistors but zero for inductors and capacitors? So we have here an inductor in an AC circuit. So when an inductor is connected with an AC source, the voltage and current amplitudes are related by this formula. So we have V sub L, which is the amplitude of voltage across an inductor in an alternating current circuit, is equal to the product of the current amplitude and the inductive reactance, represented by X sub L. So the inductive reactance, which is X sub L, is equal to the product of the angular frequency as well as the length. And the greater the inductance and the higher the frequency, the greater the inductive reactance. So for an inductor, the voltage leads to current by 90 degrees. So inductive reactance increases with frequency. So let's try to solve this. An inductor of 0.1 Henry at 60 Hz, which is the frequency, find the inductive reactance. So let's follow the formula. X sub L is equal to 2 pi by F L. So let's substitute the values. So we have 2, phi is equal to 3.14. So 2 times 3.14 times 60, which is the frequency, 60 hertz, and then multiplied by the inductor 0 or inductance rather 0.1 Henry. So, so the inductive reactance based on the calculation we will get 37.7 ohms. So therefore the inductive reactance is equal to 37.7 ohms. So let's think, pair, and share. What happens to inductor reactance as frequency increases? So what do you think? So we have here a graph of current and voltage versus time. Another case for this. So you can notice that the voltage curve leads current curve by a quarter cycle, which uh, corresponds to pi over 2 rad equal to 90 degrees. So in other words, graphically, voltage waveform leads current waveform by 90 degrees. So sketch voltage and current for an inductor. So based on your observation of your own sketch, which one picks first? So we have here a phasor diagram in which the voltage phasor leads current phasor by pi over 2 rad is equal to 90 degrees. So in other words, the average power in a pure inductor is 0. So energy is stored in magnetic field and returned to source. So kindly discuss why does an inductor not consume net energy? So we have here a capacitor in an AC circuit. So when a capacitor is connected with an AC source, the voltage and current amplitudes are related by this formula. So we have here a V sub C, which refers to the amplitude of voltage across a capacitor in an alternating current circuit, and then equal to the product of the current amplitude multiplied by the capacitive reactance, which which is represented by X sub C. So reactance, the capacitive reactance is equal to 1 over the product of the angular frequency times the capacitance. And the greater the capacitance and the higher the frequency, the smaller the capacitive reactance. So again, for a capacitor, voltage lags current by 90 degrees, in which the capacitive reactance decreases with frequency. So let's try to solve this problem. So a capacitor of 100 microfarad at 60 Hertz, find the capacitive reactance. So let's follow the formula X sub C is equal to 1 over 2 2 pi and 2 pi and c. So let's substitute the values. So we have 1, sorry for the shift, 1 over 2 pi 2 pi times 60, which is the frequency. This is hertz. Hertz is the unit for frequency. So don't be confused with the units. Then times 100 microfarad, which is the capacitance or capacitor. Micro, this is micro farad. So based on this calculation, we will get 26. 26.5. Then what is the unit for reactance? Capacitive reactance, we have ohms. So therefore, the capacitive reactance is equal to 26.5 ohms. So what happens to a capacitor reactance as frequency increases? So kindly don't be burned out by researching. So we have here a graph of current and voltage versus time in a capacitor of an alternating current circuit. So as what can you notice, the voltage curve lags current curve by a quarter cycle corresponding to negative pi over 2 rad is equal to negative 90 degrees. So in simple terms, graphically, current waveform leads voltage waveform by 90 degrees. So you can sketch a voltage and current for a capacitor, and based on your own sketch, which one peaks first. So we have here a phasor diagram for a capacitor in an AC circuit in which the voltage or phasor rather lags current phasor by negative pi over 2 rad is equal to negative 90 degrees. So this describes that the average power in a pure capacitor is 0 and energy is stored in electric field and returned to source. So we can brainstorm, why does a capacitor not consume net energy? So let's try to compare the alternating current circuit elements. So we have here a graph that shows how the resistance of a resistor and the reactance of an inductor and a capacitor vary with angular frequency. So remember that the resistance represented by R is independent of frequency. Meanwhile, the inductor is a reactance rather in, that increases with frequency. Meanwhile, the capacitor is a reactance that decreases with frequency. So again, resistor is independent of frequency, inductor increases with frequency, while the capacitor decreases with frequency. So at the angular frequency, which is equal to 0, the capacitor blocks current. So corresponding to a DC circuit, and there is no current to a capacitor because the the inductor capacitive reactance is equal to infinity. At angular frequency, the inductor blocks current. So why do capacitors pass high frequencies but block low ones? So let's try to delve into the useful application of these ideas or concepts, such as in the loudspeaker. So in order to route signals of different frequency to the appropriate speaker shown, the woofer and tweeter are connected in parallel across the amplifier output. So the capacitor in the tweeter branch blocks the low frequency components of sound but passes the higher frequencies. The inductor in the woofer branch blocks the high frequency components of sound but passes the lower frequencies. So based on this practical example, in audio systems, different speakers handle different frequency ranges, and it is divided into categories such as woofer and tweeter. The woofer handles the low frequencies, meanwhile the tweeter handles the high frequencies. In order to separate the signals, engineers use capacitors and inductors, in which the capacitor in tweeter branch blocks low frequencies but passes high ones. Meanwhile, the inductor, on the other hand, in woofer branch, blocks high frequencies but passes low ones. And this is called a crossover network, in which the crossover network in a loudspeaker system is displayed in this following uh, picture. So we have here an amplifier as well as the tweeter and the woofer. The tweeter can be found above, while the woofer can be found below the loudspeaker system. So we have here a problem. So let's suppose a capacitor that has 10 microfarad. So at 1 kilohertz, find the capacitive reactance. So this is just the same with the previous example. So in order to find, we need to follow the formula. Capacitive reactance is equal to 1 over 2. So try to remember the formula. Recall, memorize, much better. So we have substituting the values 1 over 1 over 2 pi, which is pi is equal to 3.14. So what is the frequency? We have 1 kilohertz. Then multiplied by the capacitance, which is equal to 10 micro microfarad. This is times. So based on this calculation, we will get 159 159 ohms. So therefore the inductive, capacitive reactance is equal to 159 ohms. So why is it important to separate the high and low frequencies in audio systems? So we will move on with the LRC series circuit. So when a resistor, inductor, and capacitor are connected in series with an alternating current source, the voltage and current amplitudes are related by this formula, which is a V, which represents the amplitude of voltage across an AC circuit, is equal to the product of the current amplitude as well as the impedance of the circuit, represented by Z. So the impedance of the circuit is Z is equal to the square root of R squared plus X sub L minus X sub C squared. So impedance generalizes resistance to include reactance. So when a resistor, inductor, and capacitor are connected in series with an alternating current source, the total opposition to current is called the impedance. So we have here a problem. So using these given values, R is equal to 10 ohms, L is equal to 0.1 Henry, which is the inductor. Then the capacitor is equal to 100 microfarad. Frequency is equal to 60 hertz. So find the impedance. So in order to find the inductive, impedance, we will use this formula X sub L, sorry, 2 pi 2 pi f 2 pi fl frequency and the what is this the inductor. So substituting the values, we have 2 pi, so the frequency is 60, and the inductor is 0.1 Henry. So therefore the X sub L is equal to 37. The inductor, I am 37. Well, sorry, 37.7. This is ohms. Next, we need to find the capacitive inductance. This is the capacitive inductance. So we have 1 over 2 pi sine 2 pi f, but this involves capacitance. Let's substitute the given values. So we have 1 over 2, 1 over 2 pi times the frequency, which is 60 hertz, and the capacitance. We have 100 microfarad. So we will get 26, 26.5. This is ohms. We have 26.5 ohms. Then this time we will find the impedance. So we have Z is equal to, we have here the R squared with R squared plus the, what is this? The inductance. Inductance I minus the capacitance. This is squared. So let's substitute now the values. We have 37, I mean 10. So the resistance 10 squared plus 37.7 minus 26. 26.5. This is squared. So put it here. This is equal to square root of 100. Of course, 10 times 10, 100 plus 11.2 squared. So we will get 15 ohms. So therefore, the impedance is equal to 15 ohms. So why do we use impedance instead of just resistance in an alternating series circuit? I mean, alternating current circuit. So we have here a phasor diagram for the case in which the uh, X sub L is greater than the X sub C, or the inductance is greater than the capacitance. So we have here the source voltage phasor is a vector sum of the resistance, voltage, resistor, voltage of the inductor, and voltage of the capacitor phasors. So graphically, voltage across each element may not be in phase. Resistor voltage in phase with current, while the inductor voltage leads current by 90 degrees and the capacitor voltage lags current by 90 degrees. So phasor diagrams may help us visualize this kind of relationships. So we have here, so can you sketch phasors for the resistor, the inductor, and the capacitor voltages? So based on your observation, how do they combine to give the total voltage? So we have here a phasor diagram for the case in which the inductor is less than the capacitor. So if the inductor is less than the capacitor, the source voltage phasor lags the current phasor in which X is less than 0, and the angle is a negative angle between 0 and negative 90 degrees. So the phase angle between total voltage and current is given by tan is equal to, uh, let's draw this, and sorry, this is tan, then the, what do you call it, the angular, the phase angle. The phase angle is equal to x, x sub L, the inductor, minus x sub C, the capacitor, over the resistor. So if the inductor is greater than the capacitor, circuit is inductive, which means that the voltage leads current. Meanwhile, if the capacitor is greater than the inductor, the circuit is capacitive, which means that the voltage lags current. So again, the inductor voltage leads current while the capacitive voltage lags current. So we will solve this problem example using previous values such as R resistor is equal to 10 ohms, then the X sub L inductor voltage, inductor is equal to 37.7 ohms and the capacitor is equal to 26.5 ohms. So we need to find the phase angle. So we'll use the formula. The phase angle is equal to arc arctan arctan 37 point 7 57.7 minus 26.5. 27.7 is the inductor, 26.5 is the capacitor, 26.5 ohms, then over that, get this, this is the phase angle. So if this is equal to arctan, let's solve first the values inside the parentheses. So arctan, so we will get 1.12 already divided by 10. This is 1.12. Sorry. This is 1.12. So since this is an angle, so it is in degrees, no other units. So we will get 48 Degrees. So therefore, the phase angle based on these given values is equal to 48 degrees. So let's try to think here and share. So why does the phase angle matter in AC circuits? So let's try to delve deeper into measuring body fat by bioelectric impedance analysis. So the electrodes attached to this overweight patient, based on the picture, applying a small AC voltage of frequency equal to 15 kilohertz. So the attached instrumentation measures the amplitude and phase angle of the resulting current through the patient's body. These depend on the relative amounts of water and fat along the path followed by the current and so provide a sensitive measure of body composition. So the electrodes apply a small alternating current voltage such as 50 kilohertz to the body, and the current amplitude and the phase angle depend on tissue composition, water if the water conducts well or the fat does not. And this allows estimation of body fat percentage. So why is the alternating current used instead of DC for bioelectric impedance analysis? So we have here a power in a resistor. If the circuit element is a pure resistor, the voltage and current are in phase. And the instantaneous power, which is P is equal to VI, the product of the voltage and the instantaneous current is always positive. So we have here the key, instantaneous current, small letter I, instantaneous voltage across device, small letter V, and the instantaneous power input to device, small letter V. Again, it will always be positive, meaning the instantaneous power rather will be always positive, which means that the resistor dissipates energy continuously. So the power is equal to the product of the instantaneous voltage multiplied by the instantaneous current. And we have here an example for this. So let's try to solve this. Power small letter P is equal to small letters VI, instantaneous current and instantaneous voltage. So so let's substitute the values. We have the instantaneous voltage equal to 120 volts. Then multiply to the instantaneous current, which is 12 ampere. 12 ampere. So we have here to 120 volts times or multiplied by 12 ampere RMS. So based on this calculation, we will get 1,400 1,440 watts. So therefore, the power based on the given values is equal to 140, 1,000 rather, 1,440 watts. So why is average power non-zero for resistors but zero for inductors and capacitors? So let's move into the power in an inductor. So if the circuit element is a pure inductor, the voltage leads by the current by 90 degrees. The power is negative when the instantaneous voltage and the instantaneous current have opposite signs, and positive when they have the same signs. So the average power is zero. So for a pure inductor, voltage leads current by 90 degrees. Instantaneous power alternates between positive and negative. The average power is equal to zero. And the energy is stored in magnetic field and returned to source. So why does an inductor not consume net energy? So if the circuit element is a pure capacitor, the voltage lags the current by 90 degrees. The power is negative when the instantaneous voltage and the instantaneous current have opposite signs, and positive when they have the same signs. And the average power is 0. So for a pure capacitor, voltage lags current by 90 degrees. Instantaneous power alternates between positive and negative. Average power is equal to 0. The energy is stored in an electric field and returned to source. So why does a capacitor not consume net energy? Now we have here a power in a general alternating current circuit. So for an arbitrary combination of resistors, inductors, and capacitors, the average power is positive. So for combination of the resistor, inductor, and capacitor, again, the power is positive and only resistors dissipate energy. The inductors and capacitors, on the other hand, store and return energy. Again, the resistors dissipate energy, while the inductor and capacitor store and return energy. So why is power factor important in alternating current circuits? So in any alternating current circuit with any combination of resistors, capacitors, and inductors, the voltage or the instantaneous voltage rather across the entire circuit has some phase, the angular angle with respect to the current or the instantaneous current. And the factor cosine the the phase angle is called the power factor of the circuit. So for a pure resistor, the power factor is 1. So we have here the following formula. P sub AV, which is the average power into a general AC circuit, is equal to 1 half the product of the voltage amplitude as well as the current amplitude cosine the phase angle of voltage with respect to current. And this leads to VRMS, which is the voltage, the RMS voltage, and the RMS current cosine the phase angle. So for the cosine here is a power factor. For pure resistor, the phase angle is equal to 0 and the cosine phase angle is equal to 1. So for pure inductor or capacitor, the phase angle is equal to positive or negative 90 degrees and the cosine phase angle is equal to 0. So let's first delve into this problem and solve. So circuit has a voltage equal to 120 volts RMS. The current is equal to 10 ampere RMS, and the angle rather equal to 60 degrees. Find the power. In order to find the power, we need to solve it. I don't have the pen here. Pen. Sorry for the technical problem. So we have power is equal to 120 volts. Let's go directly with the calculation. 120 volts. So multiplied by 10 ampere, 10 ampere R and S, then again multiplied to cosine cosine 60 degrees, which is the phase angle. So based on this calculation, we will get 600. And the unit for power is watts. So therefore, the power based on this given values is equal to 600 watts. So why do engineers aim for power factor close to 1 in power systems? So we have here a resonance in an alternating current circuits. So shown are graphs for the resistor, the inductor and capacitor, and the impedance as functions of the log and the angular frequency. As the frequency increases, the inductor increases and the capacitor decreases. Hence, there is always one frequency at which the inductor and the capacitor are equal, and the inductor minus the capacitance is zero. So at this frequency, the impedance Z has its smallest value equal simply to the resistance, which is the R. So based on the diagram, the impedance is at least at the angular frequency at which the capacitance is equal to the inductance rather. So impedance is at minimum value and the current amplitude is maximum. So we have here another problem. So circuit has an inductor of 0.2 Henry. The capacitor is equal to 100 microfarad. So we are going to find the resonance frequency. And to find it, we have here following formula. W sub O is equal to 1 over, not a straight line. So 1 over square root of LC, inductor and the capacitor. So let's substitute the values. We have 1 over, so this the product, the square root of the product of the inductor 0.2 hertz times the capacitor 100. So this is 1 over the square root of 0.000002. Then final calculation. Sorry for the penmanship again. So this is equal to 223. 223 rad so this is rad per second. So this is the angular frequency, 223 rad per second. And we are tasked to find the resonance frequency. So let's convert this into hertz. So converting 223 rad per second into hertz, we will get F is equal to 35.5. 35 Hertz. So therefore, the resonance frequency based on the given values is equal to 35.5 Hertz. So why is resonance important in tuning radios? So as we vary the angular frequency of the source, the maximum value of the current occurs at the frequency at which the impedance is minimum. This peaking of the current amplitude at a certain frequency is called the resonance. The angular frequency at which the resonance peak occurs is called the resonance angular frequency. At the angular frequency is equal to WO, W sub O, the inductive reactance, X sub L, and the capacitive reactance uh, are equal so the angular frequency L is equal to 1 over W sub O, then multiplied by the capacitance. So we have WO, which stands for the resonance angular frequency of an LRC series circuit, is equal to 1 over the square root of the product of inductance and the capacitance. So what happens to current amplitude if resistance is a very small at resonance? So shown is a graph of current amplitude as a function of the angular frequency for an LRC series circuit with voltage is equal to 100 volts, inductor is equal to 2.0 Henry, and the capacitor is equal to 0.50 meter farad, and three different values of the resistance. So the graph shows current amplitude versus frequency for different resistances. The smaller R is the sharper resonance peak, and the larger R is the broader, lower peak. So why do radios need sharp resonance peaks? So we have here the transformers. So in a transformer, the power is supplied to a primary coil, and then the secondary coil delivers power to a resistor. The purpose of a step-up transformer such as the one shown in the picture is to increase the delivered voltage relative to the supplied voltage. So based on this diagram, we have the source of alternating current found at the edge. Then we have the primary winding, the magnetic flux, the secondary winding, and the other side and the iron core. So the transformers are devices that transfer electrical energy between two coils using mutual inductance, and the primary coil receives power from the source. The secondary coil delivers power to the load. There is no direct electrical connection. Energy is transferred via the changing magnetic flux. Step-up transformers increase voltage while the step-down transformers decrease voltage. So let's have it in a simple analogy. So think of gears in a bicycle. Changing gear ratios alters speed and torque. Similarly, changing coil turns alters voltage and current. So kindly think of why is it safer to transmit electricity at high voltage and then step it down near homes. So in an ideal transformer, the ratio of the voltages across the primary and secondary coils is equal to the ratio of the number of turns in the coils. So we have here the following formula: V sub 2, which is the secondary voltage amplitude, and over the primary voltage, V sub 1 is equal to the number of turns in secondary over the number of turns in primary, or N sub 2 over N sub 1. So if the secondary turns is greater than the number of turns of primary, then the secondary number of turns is greater than the number of primary number of turns, and we have a step-up transformer. If the secondary number of turns is less than the primary number of turns, then the secondary number of turns is less than the primary number of turns, and we have a step down. Again, so if the secondary number of turns is greater than the primary one, we have a step-up transformer. But if it's in vice versa, in which the primary number of turns have greater value or greater than the secondary number of turns, therefore we have a step down. So we have here a problem example. So the primary coil has 100 turns, secondary has 500 turns, and the input voltage is equal to 120 volts. So we need to find the output voltage. So how are we going to do that? So we simply, this is the output voltage OV. So I know, not OV, but simply this is the output voltage. So let's say this is the final voltage, V sub F. So let's simply divide the secondary and let's write the formula first. The secondary number of turns n sub 2 then over dn sub 1. So n sub 2 over n sub 1 then multiplied by the input voltage. So this is input voltage or initial voltage. So let's do the substitution of the values. So we have 500 turns over 100 turns. So this is equal to multiplied by the 120 input voltage. So based on this calculation, we will get 600 volts. So therefore, the output voltage based on this given values is equal to 600 volts. So why do power companies use step-up transformers for transmission and step-down transformers for distribution? So what do you think? And that will be all for this lesson. So thank you for listening.